Rome, a city of layers where centuries of history are woven together in an intricate tapestry. But what happens when those layers are stripped away? In this final installment of our series Mussolini's demolition around Campidoglio, we delve into the heartbreaking destruction that reshaped the southern slopes of the Capitoline Hill. From the area of Sant'Omobono to Santa Maria della Consolazione, and from San Nicola in Carcere to Foro Boario, we uncover the scars left behind by Fascist urban progress. Join me as we peel back the remains of a lost Rome and shed light on the stories buried beneath the rubble. To unveil the ruins of the Forum Auditorium, Mugnoz's team even isolated the San Nicola in Carcere, a church built within the cella of one of the three Republican Roman temples. The church narrowly escaped demolition itself, but the buildings surrounding it were not so lucky. In Giuseppe Vasi's view, you can see Piazza Montanara from the small Piazza di San Nicola in Carcere, the state of the place before the demolitions in Nolli's map and today. After the small square with the facade of San Nicola, the demolitions continue along the southern slope of the Campidoglio and in the neighborhood between Piazza Montanara and the area of Foro Boario with via Bocca della Verità. Santa Galla and its monastery with the cloister along via Bocca della Verità, one of the few examples of churches with an oval plan, was demolished. In this aerial photo from the early 1930s, you can see the Santa Galla complex with its cloister and the neighborhood along via Bocca della Verità just before its demolition. Santa Galla Church, its facade here, the cloister, and via Bocca della Verità. The area, once occupied by Piazza Montanara, has already been erased. Here, this is the curved building of Teatro Marcello and Palazzo Orsini. Even the small square with the surviving church of San Nicola in Carcere and the medieval tower of Pierleoni is just erased in this photo. The southern side of the Campidoglio and the houses along the ancient Vico Jugario with the surviving church of Sant'Omobono up to the church and the square of Santa Maria della Salute are still standing in this photo, soon to be swept away by Mussolini's hammering fury. In the foreground, is the only surviving buildings of this part. The medieval Casa de Crescenzi and the church and cloister of San Giovanni Decollato. Let's analyze another precious photo taken from the Campidoglio of the area of Via Bocca della Verità. A photo of 1859 that show the neighborhood before the demolitions. In the background, the Aventino Hill. In the foreground, the church of Sant'Omobono. One of the few buildings that was not demolished. We see on the right the iron bridge that reconnect broken bridge and the two bands of the Tiber. The roof of the Hercules temple here. On the left, the facade of the church of Santa Maria in Cosmedin, and on the right, the church of Santa Galla. By the late 1930s, the isolation of the Capitoline Hill was completed. From the foundations of a building located at the corner of Via della Consolazione, now Vico Jugario, and Via Montanara, now Via del Teatro di Marcello, the remains of a Peperino portico from the Augustan age, late 1st century BC, early 1st century AD, were unearthed. According to some interpretations, these remains could be attributed to a section of the Porticus triumphalis. This was an ancient route traversed since the Republican era by consuls and generals who were awarded a triumph. Also during the 1930s, the new layout of the Via del Mare, now Via del Teatro di Marcello and Via Luigi Petroselli, called for the demolition of the entire block that included the church of Sant'Omobono, located along Vico Jugario, to make way for the new offices of the Governatorato. To understand the historical significance of Vico Jugario from the very origins of Rome, check out my video Secrets of Ancient Rome's Road Network. However, the exceptional importance of the archaeological discoveries made during the construction work led to a modification of the project and the preservation of the archaeological area and of the church of Sant'Omobono, completely isolated from the buildings that had previously surrounded it. The most important archaeological discovery related to the archaic Rome occurred in 1937, during excavation work around the church of Sant'Omobono, which subsequently became known as the Sacred Area of Sant'Omobono. The excavations revealed a highly significant archaic sanctuary which was immediately identified as the dual sanctuary of Fortuna et Mater Matuta. According to literary sources, this foundation was attributed to King Servius Tullius. Many of the demolitions and subsequent archaeological excavation conducted in Rome's historic center during the Fascist regime were dictated by propagandistic needs and had to be completed in extraordinarily short time frames, often coinciding with symbolic dates like April 21st, the founding of Rome, and October 28th, the anniversary of the Fascist March on Rome in 1922. This haste and lack of methodical planning resulted in the irreversible loss of the stratigraphic readings that could have provided invaluable insight into the history of the city. For instance, in the case of the area around Sant'Omobono, fortunately not compromised and reburied after demolitions, extensive research was possible. Sadly, such care was not taken in most cases. Meanwhile, the systematic stripping around the Capitoline Hill continued, still carried out by the increasingly senseless Muniots, who could no longer be stopped. This operation, which he considered completed on April 21, 1943, just 3 months before the fall of Fascism, marked the last archaeological visit by Mussolini. The final demolitions ravaged the side facing Piazza della Consolazione and the Forum, where a variety of wall remains of buildings from different periods were uncovered, generally dating from the 2nd to the 4th century AD and the medieval period. Munoz said, "These were all buildings of a private nature, such as residential houses and even mills, which did not present any architecturally interesting features." Munoz, acting as the true master demolisher of Roman archaeology, proudly boasted of having demolished them for reasons of art, traffic flow, and hygiene. Thus, once again, this area saw a massacre of ancient remains, as would later happen on a larger scale to create Via dell'Impero. Among the most significant acts of destruction, we must mention the mutilation of the Ospedale della Consolazione and the demolition of the medieval church of San Lorenzo de Nicola Naso. I conclude this series of videos dedicated to the demolitions around the Capitoline Hill by returning to the hill itself, in the square designed by Michelangelo. Just a few meters before entering the piazza, following the demolition of several residential buildings visible in this historic photo, architect Gino Venturi in 1926 was able to reconstruct a travertine facade originally designed by architect Onorio Longhi. This facade was adapted to the new municipal treasury building on Via del Campidoglio. Originally, the facade stood on Via Flaminia, next to Porta del Popolo, but due to modifications in the area at the end of the 19th century, it was dismantled. It was once the entrance to the Villa degli Altemps. Whose heraldic symbol, the goat's head, was cleverly incorporated into the capitals by the architect, creating a unique interpretation of the Ionic order. The small gem of Renaissance and Mannerist architecture often goes unnoticed in a location so dense with other historical, artistic and archaeological landmarks. Today we walk through Rome and see the remnants of these decisions, the monuments that stand isolated, cut off from the life and the history that once surrounded them. The fascist reimagining of Rome may have elevated certain ruins, but it came at a great cost, tearing apart centuries of urban evolution and the communities that called these streets home.